Hi there, I'm Vincent and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing dumper guilt timeline in 2021. I provide audio coaching to help people try and get their ex back or get a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Check out my website for more details. www.dateme.tips. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing dumper guilt timeline in 2021. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, it's very natural to be wondering if and when your former partner might feel guilt for dumping you. Are they likely to regret ending your relationship and want to reconnect? In today's podcast, I'm going to be discussing the likely dumper guilt timeline for the unique year of 2021. And how this unpredictable year affects the dumper guilt timeline. So let's get straight into this, and number one is awkwardness. So contrary to popular belief, most dumpers do not want to hurt their dumpee. The vast majority of dumpers do not want to cause their dumpee pain or anguish. The only reason they will be deciding to end a relationship in most instances is due to the fact that the dumper has lost romantic emotional attraction for their dumpee, and hence they no longer feel fulfilled within this relationship. That is the very most likely possibility as for why a dumper will end a relationship. So if they end a relationship based on a loss of romantic emotional attraction, and not because they want to cause their dumpee pain, then what you will see here is that they don't enjoy the process. The vast majority of dumpers feel very awkward during the moment of breakup. So when a dumper ends a relationship, they will often have spent a long time thinking about this situation, wondering if there are any alternatives and whether or not they can try to proceed with this relationship. If they come to the conclusion that in their own mind at this very time, they can't proceed in this relationship and feel fulfilled, this is when they will likely end the relationship. But when they do this, they will feel awkward. So although we can't call this a full-on guilt to the point of where they change their decision, we can certainly say that the first point of the dumper guilt timeline is awkwardness. It's the feeling of awkwardness in respect to them not wanting to hurt their dumpee. They do not want to cause their dumpee pain. They do not want the drama which is likely to come about from the breakup. And hence they feel very awkward. They feel awkward when they first consider dumping their partner. They feel awkward during the breakup. And they will likely feel awkward for a while after the breakup has taken place. They don't want to think of their ex as going through pain. They don't want to see their ex fall apart. They don't want to see their ex feel like they have no hope for the future. The vast majority of dumpers don't want their ex to go through any of this. Yet they understand and they recognise that their former partner is likely going through pain. And this makes them feel awkward. I will call it awkwardness at this stage, at this moment, at this point, because it is not enough guilt for them to change their mind, but it certainly is an element of guilt. It's certainly enough to put this on the dumper guilt timeline because they are feeling guilty for hurting their dumpee, but they're not feeling guilty enough to want to do anything about it in respect to changing their decision. They feel that for themselves to live a fulfilled life, they need to move forward out of this connection and out of this relationship. But this doesn't stop them feeling awkward. It doesn't stop them feeling an element of guilt for causing the pain and the emotional turmoil that they know their dumpee is likely going through. So point number one on the dumper guilt timeline is awkwardness. So now let's move into point number 2 and the second point of a dumper guilt timeline in 2021. And point number 2 is frozen guilt. So originally, the honeymoon period for being single, in my opinion, is roughly around the 6 months mark. Now, of course, this isn't an exact date. For some people, it would be less than 6 months. For some people, it would be more than 6 months, maybe even stretching towards a year. But in ordinary circumstances, I would say the average amount of time that somebody who has become single goes through the single honeymoon period is roughly 6 months. However, the year of 2021 has seen restrictions continue, and in most countries around the world, these restrictions, okay, they may have come, they may have gone, they may have come, they may have gone, but they're still here. They're still here floating around, no matter where you're living in the world. Even if they have been lifted one moment, they seem to be implemented once more the next. It's been like a yo-yo effect. And hence, it has made living a standard life almost impossible. So the year of 2021 has been very unpredictable in the way that restrictions have lifted and then come back and then got more sterner and then maybe lifted once more. And because of this, people trying to live a normal life, people trying to live, in this respect, a single life, have been thwarted. It's been very, very challenging for somebody to live the type of life that they would like to. Everybody has been affected, no matter what country you live in, whether you are rich or poor, it hasn't mattered. What has happened throughout the world has affected us all. So when I speak of the single honeymoon period, what I'm referencing is that when somebody becomes single, they want to live that single life. They want to experience the life that they feel they are missing out on from being in a relationship. That might resonate itself in things such as going to nightclubs, going to parties, often experiencing things with new people, socializing, all of those types of things. And they're exactly the type of things which have been restricted in the year of 2021. So what we see and what we find is frozen guilt. So what I like to describe ordinarily is that somebody will go through the single honeymoon period until it no longer feels new, until it no longer feels as exciting as it did at first. Maybe people that they are partying with start to pair off, start to get into relationships. Maybe they become the only single person in a group, and all of a sudden it's not as exciting as it once was. Anything which seems new and exciting eventually becomes mundane and standard. And this is what I describe as the single honeymoon period. Somebody needs to get this out of their system. Whatever it is they like to do, parties, clubbing, maybe it is something different to that. You will understand yourself and your former partner. What is it that they would like to do as a single person? What I will say is that there is a very strong possibility that what they would want to do will involve other people. It will involve socializing. Even if you say, well, no, they just want to travel. Well, traveling has been hugely restricted as well. So even if your ex is somebody who you might think, okay, they don't really like socializing, they like traveling alone. Well, traveling has been hugely restricted in 2021. So however you look at it, things have been restricted. And if somebody can't live the honeymoon period of being single, then they are in limbo. It is frozen. And whereas I normally say that traditionally 6 months is a good average to suggest for the single honeymoon period, of which time things won't seem as exciting, things won't seem as new, I would say that in the year of 2021, this period of time has been frozen. The single honeymoon period has been frozen, and therefore it has been extended. People who are single or in limbo, people who are newly single, still want to experience the things that they wanted to experience, but they have been put on hold. And if they have been put on hold, it will prevent them from moving out of the single honeymoon period. And when somebody moves out of a single honeymoon period, that is when they will look themselves in the eye, they will look in the mirror, and they will self-reflect. And this will give them the opportunity to really analyze where they are right now and whether or not they have made the correct decisions in their life and how they are feeling right now about what they want to do to proceed. Because of course you've got to understand, we live in the moment. So just because we think something is a good idea today, it doesn't mean we will think it's a good idea in a few months from now. People evolve, people grow, and this is why the single honeymoon period must take place, because until it does, somebody won't self-reflect. And what we've seen in the year of 2021 is frozen guilt. So on the dumper guilt timeline for 2021, we have to include point number 2, frozen guilt. This part of the timeline has been frozen, it has been stretched out, and unfortunately for dumpees, this might mean it takes the ex longer before they self-reflect. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast of the dumper guilt timeline in 2021. And point number 3 is eventual reflection. So as we was just discussing, the frozen guilt period has meant that the single honeymoon period has been extended. People want to experience certain things that they've not been able to, and they will stay in limbo until they can do those things. How long this will last, unfortunately, we don't know for certain, but what we can say is that as restrictions start to lift, then people can start to experiment and live the life that they feel they need to get it out of their system. But eventually, self-reflection will take place. Eventually, self-reflection has to take place. Now, how long into the future this will be, we can't say. As I said, ordinarily, I would say 6 months was the average, but it certainly wasn't the case for everybody. Some people self-reflected sooner, some self-reflected later, I would say up to a year maybe. But with the dumper guilt timeline slowing down in 2021, this could be kicked further into the distance. This could be moving into 2022 and beyond, of course, depending on when your breakup took place, and when self-reflection will happen will depend on if and when the dumper can live that single honeymoon period. But eventually, self-reflection will take place. Eventually, you will have the moment of knowing that your dumper, your former partner, is going to look themselves in the eye, they're going to look in the mirror, and they are going to self-reflect. And this is very important, because when this happens, we refer to this as ignition. This is an ignition of the possibility of your ex, the dumper, feeling guilt. This is the ignition of the possibility of your former partner regretting the breakup, regretting their decision. But this will only be the case if they have enough fuel. An ignition on its own is not enough. They need fuel to ignite in their mind to decide that they've made the wrong decision. But what is fuel? Well, fuel is romantic emotional attraction. At the time of the breakup, this level was very, very low. When you was first together, the attraction level was high. Then the dumper started to lose romantic emotional attraction. And when it hit a certain low point, they decided to end the relationship. For your ex, your former partner, the dumper, to ever reconsider their decision, they need to have regrown new romantic emotional attraction up to a certain high point, which will position them so that if they have the ignition of self-reflection or other types of triggers that I've mentioned in previous podcasts, this will create combustion in their mind, and this will be the moment that the dumper will likely regret their decision and want to reach out to their ex, the dumpee. So the ignition is the self-reflection, where the dumper really looks themselves in the eye and decides, have I made the right decision? Am I on the right path? Do I miss my ex? That is the ignition. If there is enough fuel of romantic emotional attraction which can be regrown by the dumpee behaving in the appropriate way, if that has hit the necessary high point, then when ignition hits fuel, we have combustion. And at that point, that is when the dumper will likely regret their decision and contact their dumpee. That is, in my opinion, the likely dumper guilt timeline in 2021. Of course, this doesn't happen precisely in the same way for everybody. We do have to generalize. There is no 100% guaranteed way to get your ex back, and there is no 100% guaranteed way to predict somebody's behavior. But what I'm saying to you here is a generalized viewpoint of what most dumpers will go through during 2021. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.
Yeah, if you miss your ex, we can help with that. Help you get him back, or we can help find you someone else. Yeah, Vincent, the relationship coach, giving you some insight, bringing you a new approach. DateMe.tips, go and check the site, giving you advice, helping with your love life. Get your ex back, or move to the next. Ain't no sweat, you know Vincent got you. Finding love ain't no problem. Yeah, DateMe.tips, check it out now.